Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Koshi Dhingra, founder and CEO of the talkSTEM nonprofit organization. And with me today is Betsy del Monte. This is the very first of our lunchtime live stream conversations. talkSTEM is delighted to partner with Nepris on this inaugural lunchtime live stream celebrating Her STEM Lens, a series of virtual exhibitions presented by talkSTEM and powered by Comerica Bank. The third exhibition in our series of 4 Her STEM Lens virtual exhibitions is now up. This month, we have a special theme of Earth Month 2021. Everyone is invited to check it out on talkstem.org. You will be taken to a virtual reality platform where you get to examine Betsy's and many other girls' and women's contributions where they share their STEM lens. More information is also up on our website, talkstem.org. Why don't we take a look at Betsy's contributions, her STEM lens, and I will then introduce Betsy and we'll get going. So Betsy shared a couple of photographs just from her real world. Here's one, and this is her question.
You want me to talk about this? Yeah.
Yeah, please tell us a little bit more about this.
The really interesting thing is there's something called biomimicry and how we can learn from nature, not to copy nature necessarily, but to learn from what is created in the real world by creatures who have evolved over millions of years to use the materials around them and to work within their environment and make the most of their environment. This little bird's nest was just one example of how tiny little twigs that are not very structurally sound can be put together to make a really secure home for birds, to protect the nest, protect the birds, and be structurally integrated and have the integrity needed to last the full season. And what can we learn from that? And of course, there are multiple buildings that have learned from that. There's a great Olympic stadium that utilized a concept very similar to this. And there are other buildings that similarly learn from nature to put things together in unexpected ways.
Fantastic, thanks. And let's look at your second contribution to the Her STEM Lens virtual exhibition that you also photographed. Tell us about this.
This is a building that was designed by an architect named Zaha Hadid. It is in Baku, Azerbaijan. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit and take this picture myself. It is obviously a building that's a little different from others, and it calls to mind the fact that many of our buildings are made of the rectilinear forms that we're familiar with. In this case, there are virtually no rectilinear forms. The materials of steel, concrete, in some cases wood and tile and other materials have been utilized in such a way that the building looks as though it was poured down and created of flowing materials. There are many materials in nature, like the eggs that we were just looking at, that have structural integrity derived from their shape. And this building is borrowing from some of those characteristics as well. It's a fascinating building, but it does also call to mind the question about what buildings should be. Should all buildings be standalone objects that we look like this, or are there other buildings that need to be more background and allow us to live our lives in front of them? I think we need both. But the way we put buildings together, responding to nature and utilizing nature, working with the principles that we can find, as well as contributing to the environment that we are building in, is all part of what I do as an architect.
So Betsy, thank you, first of all. So Betsy, you've contributed to Her STEM Lens, and you've also shared with the audience 2 examples of what STEM Lens. And by the way, you don't have to be a amazing architect to have a STEM lens. The premise of the exhibition, and you and I have talked about this, is that all of us have a STEM lens. It's constantly developing and evolving, whether you are in grade school or whether you are somebody with a talented professional. So let me now go back and introduce you, and then we'll continue with our conversation. So Betsy del Monte is a consultant with the Cameron Macallister Group, working with firms and project teams to enable sustainable and resilient design thinking. She also created and teaches a master's program in sustainability and development at SMU's Lyle School of Engineering. Practicing as an architect, she has 30 years of experience in high-performance architecture and environmentally responsive planning. So what does a sustainability consultant do in the world of architecture, Betsy?
Well, I come at this from, as you mentioned, 30 years of practice, the design and management and actually putting buildings together that allows me to understand that process pretty thoroughly. So what I do with my partners at Cameron Macallister is help the people, the architecture, construction, and engineering firms that are putting buildings together, help them understand the principles that they can utilize to make their buildings more environmentally responsive, and work with them to figure out the best ways that their firms can hire people or train the people that work there to be able to do that in the most effective way and to serve their own clients in a way that helps everybody and improves the impact that all of us have on the built environment, the environment in which we live our lives.
So tell us a little bit about your journey in your career. You've had a fantastic career, it sounds like. Tell us just a little snapshot. We don't have time. It's a quick lunchtime. So just the highlights maybe in your journey. And I know that you and I chatted a little bit about this, that you think, I was very taken by this, that architecture is a great educational program at college for all young women. And I thought, really, somebody who is as spatially challenged as me? And I think you made a really sound argument. So I think that was very interesting as well.
Yes, my my undergraduate degree is a 4-year degree in architecture at University of Virginia. And yes, I think the point that I made was I think an undergraduate degree in architecture is the best all-around degree for any profession, for anybody that's going to do anything, because you learn you learn physics, you learn how the world works physically, what makes things stand up, what makes things fall down. You learn math, you learn the shaping of things, the geometry, the algebra, the trigonometry. You do have to deal with calculus a little bit, but you don't have to dive into that. But then you also learn literacy. You have to read and take information in verbally, but then you also study drawings and take information in visually, and you have to both impart information verbally and impart and share information graphically and visually. And I think the exercise of doing that changes the way your brain deals with information and cracks open the way that you can perceive the world. I know that it has changed the way I see things in the world, and I've seen this with my own kids. One of my children is an architect, one is an engineer, and another is a product design engineer. All of them have learned to absorb the way the world works in a sort of three-dimensional way. And I think that's really important for everyone to understand their place in the world and how they can contribute.
So you're really talking about design thinking, and it's fascinating because, of course, in STEM education for K-12 and in general, we spend a lot of time talking about design thinking, but really allowing it to infuse within you. So you look at everything, and most things we look at are designed, whether it's done through nature, like the bird's nest, or whether it was done deliberately by humans, and we have lots of influences, such as the case with biomimicry. So that's really fascinating. And as somebody who I myself have a biology background, so design thinking, of course, structure and form is the basis of all of this. So I really find it amazing and fascinating now to think about. I always used to think architecture was never for me because I'm horrible at drawing. And, you look at all of those architectural drawings. But what you're saying is what's most important is the way you think about it and see and interpret using physics, using math, using, a variety of different ways of seeing art as well, I imagine, and putting it all together. And then, of course, you've got to put it all together and present and communicate.
Right. To me, architecture, the heart of architecture is, people always say, oh, I can't draw, but drawing is important, but it's not drawing to create fabulous masterpieces. It's drawing to communicate ideas. And the heart of architecture is taking in information, a lot of requirements and situations that need to be addressed, and taking all this disparate information and putting together not a single right solution, but the best solution, the one that really addresses the problem and solves the problem in the most elegant way. So it necessitates understanding things from multiple viewpoints that might sometimes be contradictory and coming up with an elegant solution.
So you've mentioned terms like sustainable, design. So give us a couple of examples that you've seen or designed that you really liked.
There are
anywhere in the world.
So many. There are. I can think of examples. Everything from an office building in Seattle to a wastewater treatment center in upstate New York. Sustainable design simply means reducing your impact on the environment, or preferably being regenerative and helping to make the environment better through the intervention that you are contributing to. So in other words, a building that might produce more energy than it actually needs, or a site treatment that makes the water flowing out cleaner than the water that arrived. So some of these buildings, the Bullitt Center in Seattle is the office building I was referring to, and the Omega Center in New York is the one that is, it's a natural wastewater treatment center. It takes in dirty water, sewer water, and through something called a living machine, puts the water through a beautiful set of sequences and makes it clean. So buildings can contribute in ways that are both environmentally effective and socially effective. We want to always be aware of the fact that most of the land that we utilize was actually used by another culture before us, and we seldom take the time to learn from what that might be. That we have to thank the indigenous cultures that use the land before us, and make sure we honor them through the use of the land that we now have, through one means or another, come to have at our disposal. So it's important to remember how all of us in all cultures work together, and therefore need to benefit from the interventions that we provide.
So for all the young people and educators who may watch this conversation that we're having, what would you like? I mean, so we're doing this in April in particular to celebrate Earth Month. What can we all do when it comes to minor or major design choices that we make in our lives that could, if we care about, our planet, which I think we all do, that we should keep in mind, in your opinion?
Well, the simplest are reduce, reuse, and recycle. The adage that just don't use stuff you don't need, don't buy stuff you don't need. And even in either your living spaces or your office spaces, the most sustainable building is the one that's already standing. So try to consider how we can honor our past by reusing the structures that already exist, but also to address the future by figuring out how to be more resilient and more effective with the things that we have. And that kind of thinking can apply to everything, right down to our clothes. I'm on a kick now of not buying new clothes. I just take old clothes from the back of my closet and remake them into something that I would be willing to wear.
There you go. That's design, totally connected to everything we talk about. And it's so much more original and interesting when you do that, And I think of many, look at my daughter, who's a teenager, our young people, I'm always very inspired by them, because I feel like so many of them are creative and original and really care about making sustainable choices while still expressing themselves in unique ways. So I love that example as well. Thanks so much, Betsy. I think you've inspired, I hope you've inspired lots of educators, teachers, and students. Would love to see your STEM lens, your questions and your photographs and short videos of maybe designs that you see around you, please do check out her STEM lens and you can contribute. And who knows, you may see your contribution up on our virtual exhibition walls. Thanks so much, Betsy, and great to see everybody here today.
Thanks. It's been a delight talking to you. Thank you so much.